Welcome back to a new episode of Wheels of History. Before we tell you everything about today's star, we invite you to subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this. It's just a small gesture for you, but it's essential for us to continue sharing information about vehicles that have marked history. Today we're talking about the Vespa, and we'll be telling you about the 1951 Vespa 125. For post-war Italy, the Vespa represented a motorization phenomenon similar to that of the Volkswagen Beetle in Germany. From its early design phases, it proved to be a winning model, evolving over time without ever abandoning its original philosophy and aesthetic character. Other vehicles with similar characteristics and costs, like the Lambretta, also enjoyed great success. But between the early models and the more recent ones, there have been radical transformations in both technical conception and design choices. The Vespa, however, maintains a consistent technical and stylistic identity from the 98 of 1946 to the Vespa 50 Special of 1991. Despite significant differences, there is a continuity that links all versions produced under this name. By the end of the 1950s, the Vespa had already surpassed 125,000 units produced and had established itself in the main European countries. With the production of the 98 ending in 1948, a single model, the Vespa 125, was introduced in April 1949, equipped with a swinging engine and single-arm front suspension with a linkage. In 1950, rival company Innocenti launched the fared Lambretta LC, attracting a segment of the public that preferred greater protection from the elements and oil splashes, something the Vespa models with reduced front shields did not offer. Innocenti aimed to capture part of Piaggio's clientele, for whom the Vespa had already offered a good level of protection since the 98 model. The public's response was immediate. Long lines formed outside Innocenti dealerships, and the monthly production, which was around 3,000 units with the Model B, rose to 7,000 to 8,000 with Models C and LC, nearly reaching Piaggio's production levels. The competition intensified in races and in attempts to set new world records, with Innocenti ready to challenge the records Piaggio had recently achieved. The popularity of the new Lambretta models did not go unnoticed. Piaggio alleged a possible imitation in the LC and initiated a legal action against Innocenti for the resemblance it saw between its Vespa and the new rival model. In this tense atmosphere, Piaggio launched a provocative advertising campaign featuring parrots and monkeys on vehicles with suggestive lines to directly and humorously highlight the imitative nature of various scooters, including Innocenti's. But while it did not miss any opportunity to attack its rivals, Piaggio's technical team constantly worked to improve the product. The Vespa 125 received positive feedback from customers, but the drive for improvement was ongoing and new modifications were made to keep it at the cutting edge. The 1951 model. When the new 1951 model is introduced, the press release issued by Piaggio states verbatim, "In the 1951 model of the Vespa, the structural and aesthetic essence of the machine remains unchanged. However, the experience of 5 years of large-scale production and the daily use by over 150,000 machines in circulation have suggested minor modifications and some enhancements that increase the vehicle's safety, maneuverability and comfort, making its performance extremely satisfactory." It's interesting to note the authoritative use of the term machine instead of the more common motorcycle or scooter, as well as the reference to 150,000 units sold, although in reality actual production at the end of 1950, when the announcement was made, was slightly above 125,000 units. Among the so-called minor modifications mentioned in the press release, the most significant include the gear control, now with a dual flexible cable, and the addition of a hydraulic shock absorber mounted on the swing arm of the single-arm fork, positioned in front of the support arm. This shock absorber works in the opposite direction to the norm. It extends when the spring compresses and compresses when the spring releases. Although this isn't the ideal configuration, partly due to the very short travel of the shock absorber itself, it would remain in use until the 160 GS model in 1962. No changes are made to the engine, which remains the same as in the previous model. It is equipped with a deflector piston, produces 4.5 horsepower at 4,500 RPM, and runs on a 5% fuel mixture, 10% for the first 1,000 kilometers. However, a new muffler is introduced, along with a small glass cup on the fuel supply to collect sediment, commonly found in fuel at the time, and a new rotary fuel tap replaces the previous pull type. Other parts of the vehicle also undergo updates. The headlight is enlarged and set back for greater protection from impacts. The rear light changes from round to rectangular, and the handlebar is mounted on silent blocks to minimize vibrations. A version with a speedometer housing, which remains optional, is also available. In versions with speedometer preparation, the related drive socket is installed in the front hub. Small changes also affect the seat and brake pedal, while the footrests are extended at the back to provide better support for the passenger. Performance remains unchanged, although the dry weight increases slightly, going from 70 to 75 kilograms due to the modifications made. As for use, reading through the Vespa's user and maintenance manual takes us back to the heroic days of the early post-war years, with classic recommendations such as do not fully open the throttle during the first 1,000 kilometers, in addition to the previously mentioned doubling of the oil mix ratio. An entire page is dedicated to starting procedures, including steps for dealing with flooding, a common issue back then. Naturally, the high oil percentages in the fuel mixture caused deposits. Thus, every 2,000 kilometers, it was necessary to clean the slot on the exhaust silencer's terminal, as the projections of unburned oil would mix with dust, partially clogging the opening. Additionally, every 2,000 kilometers, the air filter needed cleaning by soaking it in a bath of gasoline or petroleum. The breaker points gap required checking the sliding felt on the cam needed greasing, and the cylinder's exhaust port had to be cleaned. This last task involved removing the silencer and positioning the piston at top dead center, taking care not to allow carbon deposits to enter the cylinder. Given the complexity of this procedure, it was recommended to have it done by an authorized technician. At 6,000 kilometers, the head was supposed to be removed and the combustion chamber and piston crown cleaned of carbon deposits. Although not strictly followed today, some of these suggestions remain relevant for those who participate in reenactment events with this type of Vespa. An authentic sidecar. The transportation needs of that era, with motorization in full recovery after the war crisis, led to pairing small scooters with compact sidecars, often used by wives with the youngest child in their lap, while an older child or another relative sat on the second seat behind the head of the family. These sidecars were produced and sold by specialized companies such as Longhai or Titarelli. Thanks to its aviation sector workforce and stamping equipment, Piaggio decided to produce sidecars for the Vespa directly. The advantage was twofold. On the one hand, they provided a sturdy, tested element directly from the manufacturer. On the other, they offered a sidecar that harmonized aesthetically with the Vespa, free from frills and odd colorings. The sidecar's main body, elegantly rounded, features a large lateral fender shaped similarly to the Vespa's side panels, with an internal opening reminiscent of the vent on the cooling hood for the engine's air intake. A plexiglass windshield is affixed with screws into an aluminum profile at its base. Inside there is a cushion and backrest covered in black faux leather, a material excellent for hiding stains, but less ideal if one sits down after the vehicle has been exposed to the sun. The original Piaggio execution can be recognized by the black and blue emblem with the P on the front part of the sidecar. The supporting frame, made of steel tubing, includes the mount for the suspension arm of the wheel and the anchoring for the short suspension spring. Piaggio offered two versions of the sidecar, a standard and a luxury, differing only in a few details. The model photographed in our feature is the standard type. The luxury model has a chrome rear bumper, a cover for the suspension spring, and a shiny longitudinal strip at the center of the car body. For vehicles destined for sidecar attachment, no gearing changes were foreseen as the mounting was done at the dealership, avoiding the need to distinguish between Vespas meant for sidecar attachment and those sold without it. However, if requested by the customer, the dealership could also mount sidecars from other manufacturers, such as those from the companies mentioned. The wheels turn, but the stories endure. Every motorcycle tells a journey and unveils an era. We'll stop here, but the road of legends continues. Until the next episode, always on two wheels and with a piece of history to share. If you want to know about the history of a specific model, let us know in the comments.
Ci fermiamo qui, ma la strada delle leggende continua. Alla prossima tappa, sempre su due ruote e con un pezzo di storia da raccontare. Se volete conoscere la storia di qualche specifico modello, scrivetelo nei commenti.